Hello everybody and welcome back. I am Mr. JP and today I'm playing some more Out of Ore. So this is turning into like a daily progress report with all the hotfixes that are dropping. So thank you all for joining me again and putting up with my, habit, I guess you'd call it. So this is the mine I'm working in at the moment. It's slowly growing due to restarts. It's not as deep as it could be, and I've had a little bit of a mess around further up the hill, as you can see, planning the future, getting all ahead of myself over there really. But I've seen a few things on the Discord about loaders, and so I thought this episode I'd focus on the loaders. So over here we have 3 loaders. They are all the 500 models. So starting here, this is the 500 model. And it's a nice little loader. Zoom in a little bit. Detailed model, like it. It's got the tooth bucket on it, which is probably more useful in the Stev build of the game than it was before. But as things improve, it might be that the difference in the bucket types will come through. Over here, this is the 501, which you can see has a smooth bucket. And it's the same model as the 500. It's exactly the same. As a vehicle. This is the 510, which is the same vehicle as these other 500s, but it's just built so much chunkier. It's my favourite loader, it's the newest one. Yeah, it's got the uncovered fan, whereas these have got covered fans, which in dusty environments makes sense. It's got a slightly squarer, flatter rear bumper. It's just got more of a 80s or, dare I say it, Eastern European look. It's just a thumping big machine that's a bit harder. So yeah, we'll take this out first, I think, 'cause it's my favourite. And I'm just going to go into the mine and demonstrate a few different ways of using the loaders, because a few people are having a struggle. I've seen half a dozen comments, I've had questions. So yeah, we're going this way. The first thing to remember, they're not speed machines and they are not excavators. They are big, heavy, they take a bit of manoeuvring. Let's go into this corner where I've been playing. I had a little play here earlier just to check what I was going to demonstrate actually worked out. So, first off, these are more like scraping machines than digging machines. You can pull back from a face, lower the blade down, get it nice and level, just lift it a little and tip the front end down a little. You don't want to lift your front wheels off the ground because it will stop you digging, and just gently lower it and it will start going in. And when it starts going in, angle it up slightly and start to lift the boom, and you'll go straight up until you hit the cliff. Now, I have noticed you can only dig in to material of sort of a certain depth easily and scrape and scoop up the slope like that if there's no overhang. So nothing on top of it. If there's something on top of it, you're going to have problems. And as you can see, I've been experimenting with digging into walls all around here. We'll go over to this hopper. This is a new section of the face that I'm opening up with this machine over here. So this machine doesn't have any crushers on it because I'm not actually hitting stone. Those crushers are probably over there rigged on the wrong output now, and a few other problems. So yeah, scooping up in the open is really easy. It's hard against the cliff like I was just doing it. If you go onto an open piece of ground, where over here where I've started cutting into this new section of lithium seam, do the same thing again, lower it down, slightly pointing downwards, making sure my wheels stay on the deck. And then you just literally drive forward into the face, scooping, tilting that bucket slowly upwards and lifting it very slightly. And as long as you don't go more than a bucket's depth below the surface, or the depth of the loader, so you want your steps, if you're step mining, to be about the height of the loader. You don't want to be going anything much bigger than that, because you'll start to have a problem, which I should be able to demonstrate under here. So I'm going in under here, under the edge of this cliff. You can see it's a bit overhanging. My front wheels are off the deck, can't cut. Wham! Straight in like that. And that happened because those little bars on the back of the bucket are actually very useful. And I'll demonstrate it again because it happens very quick. But you can, with the bucket in the position that I've got it now, tilted straight forward, go into an overhang. I love this. I'm actually very impressed by this, everybody. But you can go into an overhang like this with your bucket in this position, generate lots of balls and just scoop. And you get a reasonable amount in the bucket. And you can get a lot more than that. Because with the bucket in this position, if you tilt it forward and go in, you'll see it's carving off the ceiling. So if you get under a ceiling with it upwards, wham. So you can see all the material that dropped down then when I did that. The next job is when tunnelling to clear that up. So it's also handy that for cleaning out your hopper if it gets clogged. And then once you've dropped the roof, you can just do the skimming thing, and you can get some quite nice bucketfuls by just going into that pile that's broken up and on the floor level and coming out again and working very low headroom. So tunnelling appears to be on. I noticed there was tunnelling and mining in the future progress. I'm looking forward to that a lot. Really am. You'll notice all these little blobs hanging up on the boom. Just reverse into a wall with the boom right up. Clears them right off. They land under your vehicle. And because they're under your vehicle, they won't do the whole popcorning thing. This is interesting. I've noticed this little lag before. I don't know if that will show on the video, but my game just paused and came to a halt for a couple of seconds then. Now, I haven't got the day-night thing turned on, but I'm wondering whether the clock in the game is running anyway, and that's the midnight changeover. But as you can see, I can't get in, I can't do the lift thing. Boom. Just tilted the bucket forward very slightly, the top goes in, and you are tunnelling. Look at that. You can see that reasonably full bucket from that manoeuvre. So yeah, this, as I say, is the 510, and it's a lumpy, bumpy machine. I'm not sure if it's got as tight a turning circle as the other two. I really am not convinced. It's an experiment that I haven't done, but it seems like it needs a little bit more room to work than the 500 series. Just park this out of the way over here. But yeah, they're working fairly nicely. Yeah, you see, this is the 500, and I don't know. You see, I think it's got the same turning circle. But yeah, they as I say, these two machines are. I can't choose between them really, other than on the look. It's just a bit more of a beefcake. Yeah, 500 works in the same way. Do the ceiling thing, just like that. Fill up the bucket. So there's a few different ways of digging. The hang-up thing on the boom can be a little bit annoying, but if you're on concrete, they just disappear like that one did. And falling into hoppers, no worries. Even with the slick tyres on, you'll get out of it. Swing that one over there somewhere. Got to drive through here with the other one. I don't have to. So yeah, this is my old favourite, the 500, which I haven't actually been using that much because it was very spilly and messy. Bucket lock has improved, and I haven't actually used it in the. This will be the first use in a long time for the 500. So let's drop this in and see how we're going. See whether it's as messy as it used to be. It doesn't have the long-tongued bucket, which is what makes the other two so useful in the new dev build with the balls rather than the fill planes. This was the best thing for the fill planes mode. Interesting. That's me being very unskilled. As soon as your front wheels come off the deck, you can forget digging. You can forget grip. You can forget sliding going forwards. Even though I'd say that with a rear diff the machine was four-wheel drive. But it's the same with the bulldozers. If you lift those front sprockets off the deck, you have had it. Well, I guess they're the front idlers, because the dozers are high drives, so the drive sprocket's the top one. Oops, I didn't want to do that. As you can see, a bit more messy, a bit harder to clean the boom. And the bucket's got a hang-up problem. But yeah, they're working nicely. The joy of this one is that smooth bucket. It is very good for this, smoothing and scraping. This is its forte. I don't really think it's for digging into faces very well. This is a scraping machine, and you can do very well scraping. Very well. I'll just see if I can demonstrate that a bit better over here. So yeah, scraping is an alternative to rolling or using the smoothing tools, and it's also a good way of bringing the levels down slowly to a hopper height or anything really. So yeah, I'll try a little bit across here. I think I can rely on that to not kick me around. It requires a smooth surface to start from really in an ideal world, but you just gently lower the bucket until you start picking up a very small amount of material, like that. Just go up the slope at the end, and you've got a reasonably full bucket full. This machine I don't try to overfill, and you can see that scraping the dirt off the top here, I am on top of the lithium seam. So, but you can do the same thing with the 510 and the 500 series, but because of the toothed bucket, as soon as you tilt the nose down, you start to cut grooves, and you end up with quite an uneven area, like this area that I'm on. As I say, currently I think it's down to personal preference. I think the modelling of bucket cutting edges and that kind of thing is going to improve a long way. So we shall see how it goes. But if you are struggling to cut, it's purely down to skill and how you're using it at the moment. How you use loaders has changed a lot since the original version of the game with fill planes. The dev version is very different. It's more like original Out of Ore in the fact that we've got these balls and things like that, but we also have mobile sell points, no FPS crash, which is nice. I do wonder about those funny little laggy moments that I'm having. So I'll have to try turning on the weather or something and see whether that gives it a go. So I can't get into that cliff, tilt the top in. Oh, there we go. And we have material, lots of it. I actually don't like these overhangs. I've gone off the idea of tunnelling. It might improve as I get a bit deeper, but currently, you can see what I mean about that messy bucket. There's stuff going everywhere. So this one requires a lot of roller time. I think it's for big open areas. I don't think it's, as I say, I'm pretty sure this is the scrapey cleanup mod. But it does cut a nice space, and it does clean up a cliff very nicely by just scraping the bucket up and down it. Don't worry too much about the idea of destroying dirt, by the way. Unless you're not intending to go much deeper than a certain point on a seam, the destruction of the material in the seam isn't that big a deal. I think in this game I'm sat on about 200 mil. And you can see I'm not that deep. I've just been slowly cleaning this hole out down here. And this is where the loaders really shine. Going over here next to the hopper for ease. Yeah, this is where they shine. Just go go in with the blade tilted slightly forward, and don't go too deep and scrape. Voila. And this is how loaders are meant to be used. It's a loader, it's not a digger. So pile stuff up in bulldozers into a heap and then scoop it like that. You want, as I say, that cliff's about the height of this loader, and you saw just how perfectly it fitted for a fill like that. And a fill that was a good load for this loader. But as you see how there's like a little undercut there just to the right of where I'm pointing at the moment. That's caused because the slope's getting slightly too high. It's like a minor version of that exaggerated overhang at the top there. But as you go in, the bucket will get a certain amount of balls, and after that, you're really deleting material. It's like the game can't generate any more of these balls than a certain amount, and if that's true, I'm perfectly happy for the fill planes to come back. For bigger machinery, we are going to need them. I think fill planes are the only way that dumpers are going to work. When you dump material into the back of a dumper truck, what happens? It compresses down into a single mass. For game purposes, that means that you don't have to simulate the physics anything more than adding that single mass to the vehicle's mass at a higher altitude and recalculating the centre of gravity and power settings. That's the way I'd do it. Calculating hundreds of tiny balls in the back of a loader for physics purposes is just a way of killing graphics cards. But, you know, I have my opinions. I also have opinions about a habit in the entire electronics industry. This isn't just gaming. This is cars, you name it. Why the hell does everything have to be using everything to the maximum of its potential? I'm seeing stupid little arcade games, for example, but not a good example. A Tetris style game should not be using up 48 gigabytes of my hard drive in install space. I'm sorry, yeah, it's graphically lovely, rah-de-rah-de-rah, but you're using up all of this thing on a game that could be done by a Game Boy in the 80s. You need to learn how to use the hardware better. The whole industry does. We're making advanced technical hardware, and we're seeing problems like it's still DOS. You know, the era that we're in, software writing should have become a lot more streamlined to use a lot less resources on a machine. I don't understand what's happened. I'm not a software person, but it seems like every time someone comes up with a new piece of hardware, someone writes a piece of software that'll outperform it. Now the fact of the matter is, software can always be written to outperform a machine. The trick is to write your software so it runs really nicely on machines, which is what happens when they do the console conversions. Now you can see I'm in the cliff here, and we're not really cutting much, even as we run up it. There is a certain point where you have to get that top bar in to create anything, but you can see the lovely smooth finish that this loader leaves. So yeah, these loaders all have slightly different attributes. Other than the bucket shape, I can't choose between them because they're all the same machine. They are the same machine. But as I say, these two part the same way around at the moment are probably my faves. They're the ones I spend the most time using. The 500 series, yeah, it's the same machine as the 510. It's just not as chunky. Clear up this V a little. I just took the top off there, and then I should be able to back out and clean up the bottom a little, like that. Just bringing the material down onto the floor around the edges is a perfectly acceptable thing to do here, because as I dig the middle out, I'll get it anyway. So there is no spillage and waste in this hole. The whole floor's coming out, so it doesn't matter what you do. You could shift it all by excavator towards the middle in rotational turns, but you'd be moving it half a dozen times. I like the straight to hopper. It's the most efficient. So yeah, and something else that I noticed from something in the Discord, a simple fix to a machine problem, like if you've got a wheel that's hanging off and the model's gone funny, unless these are loaded up with mods, i.e. if you've gone into the vehicle options and changed your paint and everything, this is how you refuel, by the way. Bring up the inventory, which is in here in this top bar, click on vehicle options, refuel from fuel station, as long as you're close enough, and that white line appears that links the mouse to the refuel from fuel station, pointing at the fuel station, you can refuel, which is handy. And once, as I say, to repair any vehicle or model problems, because I paused the game on it was a 510, and the fan ended up sticking half out this rear casing. So you just look at it, press the number for the empty slot on your bottom bar there, and it's back in the inventory, just like that. Change to inventory, that'd help. So yeah, 500 back in, and my vehicles are over there. Tabbing between vehicles, best thing ever. And that's 500 back in the room. Just like that. So yeah, as I say, there really isn't... The trick to loaders now is not to get greedy. It'll only cut so much, it'll only lift so much, there are only so many balls the game appears to be able to generate. You'll only ever get so much in your bucket. So I guess it's down to whether you want an area that looks like lumpy bumpy like this. Ooh, and we've got another one of those lockups. This might be a verifying files or a machine restart. I shall have to have a go. But yeah, in you go, tilt the front end up, and it just fills with little balls, just like that. You see what I mean about how the toothed buckets, they just give you a little bit more control over your load at the moment than the straight one. Straight one probably is better for unloading into dumpers, but since the dumpers are a little glitchy still, I haven't been using them much. That may change. That may change. Yeah, as I say, this 510 is lovely, in my opinion anyway. I think it's great. Just maybe it's because I'm an 80s kid and everything was square when I was a kid. You know, Land Rovers and trains and everything else. There was a lot of square stuff in the 80s hanging around. Very industrial. Yeah. The underground cutting like that just doesn't appear to get you the same bucketfuls as surface scraping. Definitely not the tool for the job. Maybe I need to do some experimenting with excavators and those rotating arm things. Maybe I'll give that a go today. Under one of these ridges once I get it a bit deeper in. Over there might be deep enough. Yeah, it just doesn't... Underneath these ridges, just doesn't seem to get the same... dig in. Unless you're cutting the top out, in which case you can really overload. Even on a thin bit like that. If there's stuff on the top of it, you can't dig it. Not a hope. And I'm not even down to the stone yet, so I'm pretty sure this is a compression thing. There is a limit on how much material can be on top of a voxel before the loader bucket can't do anything to it, essentially. But yeah, all of these overhanging bits are going to give me the ability to try something else in a bit, so that'll be fun. But yeah, you can literally just drive into an overhang like that, and wham, full bucket. So you could always cut underneath the rich stuff and just go in like that. And then build a floor, and then go in, and build a floor, and go in. So start at the bottom and work your way up. A few different ways of doing this. More than one way to skin this cat, as it were, or one, I suppose, yeah, in this modern softy world, there's more than one way to peel this potato, since it's okay to hurt vegetables. There, yeah, don't get me started, don't get me started. But yeah, loaders, exactly what they say on the tin at the moment. they load. And by taking a couple of scrapes in, if you don't reverse too far, the balls don't turn back into terrain, which is kind of handy. I mean, skin a cat isn't the worst term in the world. When the French say they have better things to do, they say they have other cats to whip. So realistically, what's worse? I mean, I'm assuming that the one that gets skinned has already been finished off. It's not a live job, but whipping something tends to be alive, unless it's cream. Unless you class cream as a live entity, which, judging by the way they talk about some of these funny cultures in the yogurts, I think they are. Not sure if I want my yogurt to be alive. I have these visions of a talking yogurt like something out of Futurama or Rick and Morty. Very scary. This horrible thought of a future world where as you walk into a supermarket the products actually start saying buy me because all the labels are intelligent. A bit like the pig in heaven when he walks up to Homer. Ah, Mr. Homer, sir. What would you like today? Bit of rib, bit of sirloin. I've got a few bits, and just sort of lays there ready to be munched from. Which is kind of strange. Kind of strange. But, sorry, I'm getting distracted because I'm getting into loader work again. But it doesn't take long before you start making an impression on the landscape with a loader. Going in like this is very therapeutic. You can use up hours. Hours and hours and hours. Just go in, generate the balls, lift it up, after tilting the front end up, and these full buckets just keep on coming out. It's relatively tidy, have to go in with the roller occasionally. The smoother the area is you're working on, the less you spill, obviously. So yeah, it really doesn't take long to mine a fair distance into an area. Going downhill, loaders don't dig downhill very well. Sticking the bucket in and hoping the weight of the vehicle will do it just doesn't seem to do it. But if you start a scrape and then tilt the bucket forward more and more, you will cut a steep downhill very quickly. So yeah, it's sometimes easier to start it with an excavator or a bulldozer and build a step like you see in front of me here, and then take the loader in. So take a staged thing to your mining. Obviously at the start of the game, a bit awkward, you can't afford everything. But as soon as you find one of these lithium seams, you are in the money. And when I say you're in the money, I mean you're in the money. Because just dump this bucket full. Like that. It's a little bit awkward there because the ground slopes uphill, and so I'm not on a level surface, and when you're not on a level surface the buckets start playing around on you. Dozer blades will do the same thing. So yeah, machinery now. I've set up some machines before, I will be again on camera, but essentially you have the hopper component here. These are the roof tiles, these are the wall tiles. You build your own hoppers now. I'm going to be building a super hopper at some point, but this is a hopper up, a conveyor up into the processing drum or sorting drum, or some would call it a grading unit. Essentially, these in real life work that the drum spins, stuff goes in the end, powder goes out the bottom, rocks go through. And in this case, the rich stuff is coming out the top, which if the platinum and lithium ores are rock-based strata, this makes sense. Down here we have the powders, and out of the powders is coming dirt and pay dirt, and I don't like the looks of this, because personally I think dirt and pay dirt are two different materials. This is where I think I might have my machinery rigged up wrong now, but I'm not sure, because I'm wondering whether if dirt and pay dirt go through the crushers and you end up with more stuff, but it's an experiment I need to do. But over here we've got very little of the pay dirt in it, very little of the dirt, because this machine I barely used in the last session. But that one bucket full of lithium there, 669 versus the 22 out the other hole. So if I go into the selling, which is just a box on the top bar, you just move it across into the bar like this. I'm doing this the long way. I could have grouped these together, but I'm doing it like this for a reason. So I've got 22 platinum there, and I've got about 600, and this was pretty much a full bucket of the lithium. Sorry, and 22 platinum. Got them the wrong way around. And this, because I've got like 46 lithium and 669 lithium there, we'll just sell all the items. You can see how quickly that went up. That's a 1.2 million for 600. It's 80k for 60. So it's expensive stuff. If you can get as much platinum is also very, very good earner. The magnetite and the bauxite and pay dirt and the dirt, they're essentially a sideshow compared to the 1.3 mil just like that, which is why I'm sat on 202 million. So making money isn't the problem, getting depth isn't a problem, and the amount of material here, I'm going to be honest, I've had a couple of conversations over the time that Out of Ore has been going with the dev and people concerned and other people who have explored this map. I know roughly how big this map is. I know how big it used to be, just done by the maths from an equation that I was given for the surface area. I think the map has been reduced in size. I think it's more than big enough at 5 mile an hour still. It goes down a long, long way. There is endless amounts of material in here, and yeah. The game has massive potential. We need to work on the production machinery. I've got ideas for that, so I'm going to be throwing them out there once I've assembled them together into a more coherent state, and we'll be there. So yeah, this is the game so far. So thank you all for joining me. I hope that explains how loaders are working a little bit better, and helps you out with your mining. So thank you all for joining me, everybody. Leave a like and a subscription if you like the channel. If you find the information useful. Not many of us covering it. We all cover different things. We all come up with different things. Very handy. So yeah, big shout out to all the subscribers already, and all of the viewers, and my fellow content creators. Thank you all very much. Have a great day, everybody.